Good morning to you, and thank you so much for finding time to be with us today. The show is Good Morning Africa. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and it is a pleasure to have you on board. And good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in today. I'll take us through the headlines, and then we shall have a discussion based on some of the news items that have been featured in today's newspapers from Kenya and across the continent. We start with the Star newspaper. Ruto's UDA to splash 500 million Kenya shillings on primaries. Party to hire 100,000 polling clerks, 128 presiding officers and 47 returning officers. The story is on page 6. Public uproar forces Uhuru to release oil marketers' cash. That you'll find inside the newspaper, and we shall look at that story. And relief as state increases subsidized fertilizer to 20 bags per farmer from 5. That is on page 2. And Millie Odhiambo bill raises children age of criminal culpability to 12 years. And then because women elected him, Ambassador Ahenda said he was a woman. That is on page 3. All right, interesting. And then just up there facing the law, 17 accused of stoning Raila Chopper to be detained for a week. The story is on page 7 on the Star newspaper. On now to the Standard newspaper, the main headline, how 34 billion Kenya shillings dispute pushed Kenyans into fuel shortage. Uhuru signs bill authorizing Treasury to pay oil companies to end consumers' agony. Ruto blames corrupt officials and cartels for suffering of millions, and supply expected to be restored. The story is on page 5, 6, 7 and 29 on the Standard newspaper. My husband married second wife to get boys. That is on page 17. And where allure of gold beats fear of death. The story is on page 24. Kenyans save 32 billion Kenya shillings on Mshwari. That is on the business page on the Standard. And honeymoon for Zambia rally couple. That is on page 47. Build junior high classes, private schools ordered. Education CS George Magoha directs private institutions to comply with the demands of the competency-based curriculum by building extra classrooms before new program is rolled out. That is on page 13. An aspirant killed 3 days to ODM nominations. Nairobi best businessman who had traveled to Kisii to take part in ODM primaries set for Thursday has been killed, raising more questions about election violence. The story is on page 12. And the Daily Nation, the main headline, the path to power, Raila's big headache. The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya flag bearer has won the endorsement of President Kenyatta in his 5th stab at the presidency. But he has a lot of work to do in overcoming the challenge mounted by Deputy President William Ruto. Mr. Odinga's biggest hurdle is the choice of running mate. He must satisfy Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and accommodate the interest of more than 20 parties that are firmly behind his campaign. Will he succeed? The story is on page 12 and 13. Aisha Jumwa murder trial starts. The first witness places Malindi MP at the scene of the crime. The story is on page 9. And man and twin daughters in horror crash buried. That is on page 8. Why some top KCP stars might miss their dream schools. That was on the back page of the Daily Nation. Fuel crisis, hope at last. Relief for now as President Kenyatta approves payment of oil marketers 13 billion Kenya shillings fuel subsidy arrears. But tough times loom for many Kenyans. You'll find that on page 2 and 3 on the Daily Nation. Now let's turn our attention to some of the regional papers from across the continent here in Africa, and we start with one from Nigeria. The Punch newspaper, heavy criticism for federal government as 24 states lose foreign investment. That is the main headline there. And then The Guardian, still from Nigeria. 1 week after attack, 168 train passengers remain unreachable. I think I had a bit of that conversation yesterday on our Diaspora Dispatches, which usually comes to you 3 p.m. East African time when we look at the news from across the continent of Africa. So that is there. And also the new vision from Uganda. Deadly worm ravages coffee plantations. All right. And the Daily Monitor, still from Uganda. Burial bill paid at last. I think for the late Speaker of Uganda's Parliament. Okay, and then we move on to The Daily News from Zimbabwe, Kupe bind keeps CCC in Biao at war as suspicions persist around her game plan, her real motive. Okay, and then Newsday is still from Zimbabwe, and Kobe grilled over vaccines. I think that must have been the Cabinet Secretary for Health. And the Daily News from Tanzania, Samia envisions agricultural growth corridors in offing. That is what we have there. And the Citizen, government outlines agriculture transformation agenda. That is also there this morning. So that is what we have in some of the papers in the country and some from across the continent. So we do have so much to talk about this morning. I'm joined by Gladwell Kirago from Nairobi. Gladwell, if you can hear me, a very good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, Miriam. Good morning to our viewers.
All right, nice to have you on the show this morning. So I guess we just start with the main story, today, and that is what President Uhuru Kenyatta did yesterday. And Kenyans should brace themselves for tougher times. I'm reading from page 2 on the Daily Nation. Kenyans should brace themselves for tougher times ahead amid increasing global Brent crude oil prices, even as the government prepares to pay oil marketing companies 13 billion Kenya shillings in fuel subsidy arrears. Yesterday, President Kenyatta signed into law the supplementary budget for the 2021-2022 financial year, giving 34.4 billion Kenya shillings to the Petroleum Ministry for fuel stabilization. Well, this is a good move. Perhaps, Gladwell, many Kenyans are wondering, why did we have to get to that level for the government to act?
Yes, I think the government needed to act very fast, and most on the fuel issue. Our country, it's low on fuel, and I don't know if you saw the video yesterday in Kirinyaga when the Shell lorry arrived. There was jubilation, and the Shell attendants were so happy. So I think it's an issue that is affecting our country, and the government really needed to act fast. And as you know, most of the people, they also have got their own means of transport, and also us as those. And the funny thing with Kenyans is, I saw somebody comment saying that whether the fuel price is high, they don't care. But then you forget that no matter what, day in, day out, you have to use the matatus, you need to use the vehicle. So it affects you in one way or another because of the means of transport you perceive to take. So I think the government took the right decision to act very fast, because at the end of it all, we needed fuel in our country, and we need to move from where we are going.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, but even as President Uhuru Kenyatta signed, to give that fuel subsidy to the oil, to the oil companies, well, Kenyans should still, and indeed the world should still brace themselves for more tougher times coming ahead, as now the global Brent crude oil prices will go even higher. But I think for Kenya, the issue is not so much about the prices. Of course, the prices is a problem, and because of the artificial, shortage, some petrol stations took the advantage and hiked a bit, the prices of oil. But also, that is something that could have been averted. But now there could be a possibility of the prices going up. So that means there will be oil, but Kenyans will have to dig in a little bit deeper into their pockets to ensure that they're able to fuel. And of course, that will also affect the price of manufacturing. So that, we should brace ourselves for tougher times ahead. What do you say to that?
Yes, very true, Miriam. I think we should be ready, and we should. Already we are in the crisis. Already, it's not starting again. We are going on, and we are going on and being tougher. The economy being tougher. Currently, the prices, even in the food market, they are too extremely high. And one thing, the government, the president, he's trying to sympathize with the Kenyans, but there's nothing he can do at the moment. I went to the supermarket, and you're like, what will you pick and what won't you pick? The prices are so high. Like, the cost of living is also high. So, and the people, what they're doing that because of, for example, in a shop, a packet of unga was 120, and the shopkeeper also needs to make a profit to the unga. he or she will hike the price of cost 130, 140. And at the end of it all, you also need that ply, you also need that oil. So the prices will be high, and I think we Kenyans, we should be ready the way we were ready when the COVID-19 did strike. We were so much ready for it. And I remember people did a whole hope of shopping and they kept it in their houses. And that's what I've seen. Like if you went to the supermarket, currently there's no milk. And you also find that where you find milk, you're only allowed to buy either 2 to 3 packets of it. So I think we Kenyans, we should be ready that times are tough and we should be ready for it. Yes, but the only thing I can say, let us be our brother's keeper. That's the only thing that can help us out.
And on the milk part, Gladwell, I don't know, I don't understand. Yes, I went to buy milk, was it yesterday or the other day? And the major brands that I use were not there on the shelves. I didn't see milk from Brookside. I didn't see some of the milk from KCC. I didn't see the brands that you usually find in the supermarket shelves, or just the local shops in the estates there. So I don't know what is the correlation between milk and fuel. And somebody was joking, what is it? Do we even milk the cows in Russia, or why do we not have milk?
Yes, I saw the meme, yes. And for example, the issue of Brookside, it's being related with rubies. And something that brought up an issue, and yesterday you saw that tweet from William Ruto. He really asked, who owns rubies? Because currently, as we say, rubies is not lacking the much oil as you can compare with the Shell and the rest, Ola. But with the rubies, it is well stocked, and you can say something to Brookside. Brookside, in some supermarkets, you won't find the milk. And yes, I'm still not yet to understand why some companies are lacking milk, yet some others are still there. But as you can see, the issue, for example, with Brookside, most of the milk it is long life, and the long life milk is lacking. But when you see like the likes of Mount Kenya, it is readily available. Something else I've seen Kenyans sort to, it is imazwa ya kupima. Yes, that one, it's currently saving many Kenyans. But now the issue with that is that the sellers, all they do, they add milk or flour to make it high, to make the milk thick instead of selling the original milk. And as we say, Mazwaya Kupima, currently a liter is at 70 bob. So many people opt for the packet, which currently is 60 bob. So with the Brookside and a Gold Crown, I don't know what's the niche, why it is lacking, yet Mount Kenya, it's readily available. But most people don't take it. I also think it also depends with the thickness of the milk.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you just, I think, pointed out something there, that it's only rubies. I was on Mombasa Road over the weekend, and we went to Rubies, and we did not get oil, the gas, so we had to drive back to, I think, Ola petrol station. So I don't think, perhaps what maybe Kenyans are saying is true, or there's some, maybe there's some truth to that. I don't know, but I know we drove into Ruby's petrol station over the weekend on Saturday, and we didn't get oil, so we had to drive back because we had passed by an Ola, petrol station. We had to drive back, and we filled there. So I don't know. And yesterday, I think along where we work, it's only one station that had oil, and that was Total. So I don't know if that is true, that it's only Ruby petrol stations that have oil, but I don't know. Maybe the experiences of Kenyans out there is different. Jevan Karanja, good morning. All right, Jevan Karanja is still joining us there. So yesterday, President Kenyatta signed into law the supplementary budget for 2021 and 22 financial year, giving 34.4 billion Kenya shillings to the Petroleum Ministry for fuel stabilization. The allocation gives hope for the consumers that while the state may not fully absorb the higher cost of fuel this month, the funds will keep the dying kitty going for a while longer. Petroleum Ministry Principal Secretary Andrew Kamau, in an interview with NTV on Sunday, said the oil funds will be paid this week, even as he strongly defended the sustainability of the fuel subsidy scheme. And that's very interesting. So anyway, official data seen by the nation shows that top oil marketers have emerged the biggest beneficiaries scrambles for oil, giving a pointer to the motive of the shortage. It shows that the few large oil companies sold 20 million liters of fuel this weekend alone, nearly double what they normally sell. Okay, so now you see they're playing us. And one of the large oil marketers, I think partly what you're saying, Glado, one of the large oil marketers, for instance, sold 10 million liters of the product, which is half of the total volume of the product sold across the country during the time, and which also more than double the about 4 million liters it usually sells over a typical weekend. Last month, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, increased petrol, diesel prices for the first time since September by 5 shillings, Kenya shillings per litre, sending the cost of the product to a record high. All right, Javan Karanja, I was just reading through the story to see if you're joined already. I see now you're able to talk to us, Javan. A very good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, Miriam, and to our viewers and Gradwell.
All right, so very well, nice to have you. So yesterday, President Uhuru Kenyatta signed into law the supplementary budget giving 34.4 billion Kenya shillings to the Petroleum Ministry for the fuel stabilization, and many Kenyans are wondering why did it have to take us to suffer a little bit before the government could do this?
I think from what I heard the PS for Petroleum, the Energy Ministry saying, the problem was not the subsidy or the amount of money that the government was holding for the distributors of oil, but mostly he blamed the panic buying. He said that is a major cause of the problem that we experience in the country, because he's saying 80% of the problem was created by Kenyans themselves when they went to buy oil in large stock, and that is how they strained the distributors. Because if you're buying this fuel in large quantities, what happens is that you drain the tanker, and they'll be forced to get fuel from Nairobi. And maybe, for example, you are in Nyeri. Therefore, it will take time. And that is how we found people congesting in petrol station, waiting for fuel to arrive so that they can fuel their cars and their motorbikes and so on. Therefore, but I think the government should have raised with speed to give this money to the distributors so that they can do their business without really blaming the government, because you have seen the deputy president and the other politicians trying to politicize the issue by saying the government was aware, the government failed to do this and that. Therefore, I think the government should be raising to this occasion early enough to avoid creating these loopholes and allowing the politicians to take advantage of the situation and politicizing the issue.
All right. And let's just get to what the Deputy President William Ruto said yesterday. I see the stories on page 3 on the Daily Nation. And Deputy President William Ruto yesterday challenged the government to address what he termed as an artificial fuel crisis that he blamed on cartels and state barons. Dr. Ruto demanded full disclosure of oil marketers who have benefited from the fuel subsidy, claiming that some of the funds had been diverted. The DP said the high fuel prices are unprecedented and are not due to ordinary market responses to global crude oil price dynamics. This is the result of collusion between monopolistic cartels and economic saboteurs on one hand, and oblivious, reckless, insensitive, and incompetent public officials on the other hand, the DP told a media briefing at his current residence yesterday. He questioned the whereabouts of the 39 billion Kenya shillings Petroleum Development Levy Fund meant for the fuel subsidy program, claiming it had been diverted to pay debts and to develop infrastructure without the approval of Parliament. The DP asked the Petroleum Ministry to list the import quotas allocated to respective oil marketers over the past 1 year. And I think I did watch that media briefing by Deputy President William Ruto, and Kenyans had a lot to say about that media briefing, and they said, you know what, the Deputy President is already taking position to be the official opposition of government. I don't know if you saw that media briefing, Gladwell, and what do you think of it?
Yes, I saw it, and my question is, the Deputy President is challenging the government. Is he in government himself?
I think that's the
or is he out of the government?
Yes, it's ridiculous.
Another thing, he said that the money has been diverted. To who and by who? And how does he know it is diverted? You know, some of the things the deputy president says, he seems like he's also part of it. Because how can you challenge the government you are in? Or is he out of the government? And I wish Dr. Matsanga was there. I think he could have an answer to it. And he's challenging the government. Is he in the government or is out of the government? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and of course he was speaking from his official deputy president's residence in Karen. Jevan Karanja, you heard what the deputy president, William Ruto, had to say. What's your response to that? Or what did you make of that press briefing yesterday?
Yeah, these are the usual politics, Miriam, and the deputy president is known to a man who wants to ride on sympathy, because he came to the media purporting to be a savior. He came with an image of a man who is really fighting for the interest of Kenyans in the expense of his political career, so that Kenyans would see that this man really fights for us, this man really knows what the government is doing, and it's the cartels who are holding the oil. But that's how he does his politics. But to some extent, it's quite funny that he is an opposition within the government, because he is still the deputy president. Instead of offering solutions, instead of saying this is what the government should do, he is there coming in the media, lamenting and crying to the media instead of offering solution. And I think maybe, as we have said, there are some Kenyans who feel like the deputy president has started practicing and assuming his roles as the official opposition leader from 2022 August polls, because that is what the opposition government does. But in this time round, Miriam, we will have a very weak opposition government if deputy president will operate in that manner, because we need an opposition government that will hold the government of the day accountable, an opposition government that will champion for a cause to better this country, and an opposition government that to some extent can be looked as an alternative government in case the government of the day fails to deliver on its mandate. But I don't see that materializing, because deputy president will continue with these lamentations instead of coming out. And if he feels Jubilee government, if he feels President Uhuru Kenyatta has failed, I don't know what he's doing, holding on a government that has failed. I don't know what he is doing in a government that has failed to deliver to the people he calls hustler, and he is part of the same government. I think Kenyans should also be vigilant and open their eyes and see this man as just a political conman, or just a political saboteur, as he likes calling others. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Because you really can't have your cake and eat it like that, Deputy President William Ruto. You're either in the government or you're not. You can't be standing on the front porch of your official residence as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya under the Jubilee government. Then you want to stand there and talk to us about what the government should do, while you're supposed to be in that government working. And since you're not, and you've said before, then you have no business calling yourself the Deputy President, of the Republic of Kenya. The next time I hear him, in this rally saying that, I don't know, because he keeps saying, I'm the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Yes, and at times like this require you in your position as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya to show some direction, to sit down with your boss and your government that you're still in and we pay you to be in, to give us solutions, not to come there and lament like the rest of us are doing here, because us, all we can do is talk. But you are the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. You are supposed to have these solutions. And for you to stand there with these people, I just found it to be very embarrassing. A whole Deputy President of our republic, you are supposed to be standing there and offering us solutions, not talking as if you are, the leader of opposition in this country. And if you cannot live up to the position that you have as the Deputy President, then you have no business even standing in front of the porch of the official residence of the Deputy President. You have no business talking to us in your position as the Deputy President if you cannot live up to what we expect from you holding that position. That is just my feeling. So if somebody else was talking about this, I don't mind, because I think the government was wrong in regards to this is something that they could have sorted out, not wait until Kenyans, suffered for this to happen. While it happened, it's a good thing. But I'd like somebody else to be the one criticizing, not a deputy president. I don't want to hear that coming from you, DP, not you. Somebody else, yes, not you. Because you were the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, and you keep reminding us that. So you're standing there with Musalia criticizing, that's fine. He is in opposition, and these are the leaders that accompanied you yesterday. That's fine. But you, I will not receive that, coming from you. And of course, he went ahead to, also criticize, the government in terms of the fertilizers. And this is what he said: many farmers have failed to plant because the price of fertilizer has moved from 3,000 Kenya shillings to a high of 7,000 Kenya shillings per 50 kg bag. He said Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya last week announced a reduction of the price of fertilizer to 2,800 per 50 kilo bag, but with a rider that only registered farmers will benefit from it, and it will cap at only 20 bags each. The earlier price, the deputy president noted, was beyond the reach of most. So he was, of course, these two issues he brought up yesterday in that media briefing: the prices of the high price of oil, and of course the artificial shortage there, and also the price of fertilizer. And while he was doing that, I think the government was working with finding that solution. These two issues he called the press to address. The government, I think, had planned earlier. You see, Deputy President, if you were properly positioned as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, these are things that you would have known instead of coming out and embarrassing yourself. Because after that, we saw the President assign this monies to be given, the fuel stabilization fund to be given to these companies. And also the issue of the fertilizers was also addressed yesterday. So let's just look at that. I see on page 2 on the Star newspaper. All right. And small and large-scale farmers can now sign with relief, as after Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya said they can purchase up to 20 bags of subsidized fertilizer. The CS said the government has listened to the concerns of the farmers and agreed to remove the 5 bags cap allocated to each registered farmer. Farmers are now allowed to purchase up to 20 bags of fertilizer from the initial 5, both planting and top dressing, he said. A bag of DAP that was sold at 6,000 will now go for 2,800, and urea that was sold at 6,500 will now be sold to them at 2,700. And a bag of CAN that was sold at 3,900 will now be sold at 1,950. That is quite a reduction of prices there. And I think we've talked about some of these issues. If we really want to achieve a food secure Kenya, that the government has to look at, the inputs that these farmers, incur when it comes to, producing, the food they do in their farms. And one of them is the reduction of this, prices of fertilizer, like we've seen. This is quite substantial. So what will this mean, essentially, to the farmers out there, Gladwell?
Miriam, before anything else, I think we Kenyans should open up our eyes. And I always have an issue with this government. And as I said earlier, if the government had implemented on our farmers and most looked locally into our farmers, we could not be suffering the way we are suffering as Kenyans. We could not, because if they did look into our farmers and start manning up the farmers. We've got so many farmers who produce, and our Kenyan land is so fertile. But now what is happening currently? Because of the crisis, that's when the government, and that is when the CS can now see that they need to reduce the fertilizer price so that the farmers can benefit. But they're benefiting from it when it's too late from it. Because if they did it before the crisis did strike, we could not be suffering the way we are. Mm-hmm. And I'm also having an issue with the deputy, and when I say the government, that is inclusive of the deputy president. He is part of the government. And can he stop coming outside lying to us? Because Miriam, I'm sorry to say this, there is no difference between me and the deputy president currently. The only difference is because of his lavish life and what he's earning. But the way I'm just going outside complaining that the food prices is high, we are suffering. It's the same way he's just coming with this convoy of vehicles here, saying that the Kenyans are suffering. But at the end of it all, he's going back to his home in Karen, whereby he has got securities. He doesn't even know the pinch of food. He even imports his own things. So is he really suffering? Is he as hustler nation as he calls himself? Is he one?
Okay, that's a good question, and maybe the deputy president will be able to answer that. And I saw yesterday when after that press and he posted something on one of the social media, Kenyans had a lot of response about that. Jevan Karanja, the government has capped the subsidized fertilizer to 20 bags from 5 bags, and also the prices have significantly been reduced there. What will this mean to the Kenyan farmers?
That's a very big achievement to our farmers, because now they'll be able to plant. We know it's a planting season. So this means that Kenya will have enough food as we move to the next quarter or half of the next half of the year. Therefore, these are good thing. But I think the government should be raising, doing these things before we have this kind of crisis, before the farmers strain and they are forced to dig deep in their pockets. I think the government should be coming up with the solutions before we reach to a certain stage of a crisis, so that we avoid all these dramas and politicizing of these issues as you're seeing now. But it's so unfortunate that, but I think the government raising the number from 5 to 20 bags, that is a very good thing, because when it's left open for farmers to buy any amount of fertilizer that they want, the richer guys, what they do, they usually go and they stock, they buy in bulky. They go with this fertilizer, they stock in their house, and when the NCPB board, the body that is supposed to sell these fertilizers, runs short of the fertilizer, they hike the price and they start distributing to the small-scale farmers. Therefore, the government is doing a very incredible job to limit the number of bags that any particular farmer is supposed to buy, because you know what they do even with the maize. They usually go and buy from the farmers, and they resell to the National Cereals and Produce Board, because in this country we have people who make money just by beating around this thing they call deals and so on. Therefore, that's a very good thing. But for the deputy president, I don't know why he is complaining and about the fertilizer, and he has been at the helm of the agricultural ministry. He is the deputy president. Why didn't he raise these concerns before? He waits until CS Peter Munya is giving solution, then he comes in and start lamenting and saying all these manner of things that he is saying, so that he can portray himself as a man who pushed for these changes. But I think yesterday he was caught off guard. I think he did know what was happening in the government, and he thought maybe by coming yesterday out and issuing a presser, maybe the government would have reacted maybe 2 to 3 days after that. But he was surprised that even when he was giving this presser, the president had already signed a bill to distribute this 34 billion to the oil distributors and so on. Therefore, the deputy president should also, at some extent, and as CS Peter Munya was urging him, he should be the one directing CS Peter Munya, but not waiting for CS Munya to perform on his duties. Then he comes pointing holes, he comes out criticizing what the government is doing. He should be the one driving this agenda. He should be the one sharing the cabinet sittings and telling them what to do. But now he has reduced himself to an ordinary Kenyan. He just laments, he comes out in the press, cry, then go back. The following day, he comes with a new thing. I think the deputy president, to some extent, he is really overdoing what he usually do. He needs to relax and maybe take a break and consolidate himself and maybe figure out how he'll win this election. Because I think when you overdo something, when you persist on doing something repeatedly, what it does to some extent, people tend to get a bothersome kind of feeling, and they don't really want to listen to you, because if you saw the comments and how Kenyans reacted to Deputy President yesterday's presser, you'd see that people really are not interested with these kind of dramas and a push and pull. What they want are solutions, and concrete solution that will ensure that Kenyans will have affordable foods. Kenya's economy will go back to where it was some years back. That's what Kenya are interested on, not this dramatic approach that the deputy president is using.
Okay. All right, and let's just move swift along to another story where a bill raises age of criminal capability for 12 years. Lawmakers are considering, I'm reading from page 7 of this newspaper in case you're wondering. Lawmakers are considering a new bill seeking to increase the minimum age at which a child can be held responsible for a criminal act to 12 years. The Child Justice Bill 2022, sponsored by Suba North Member of Parliament Billy Odhiambo, seeks to provide that no prosecution shall be instituted for persons under 12 years. A child who commits an offence while under the age of 12 years shall be presumed not to have had the capacity to appreciate the difference between right and wrong, the bill reads. The proposed law provides that where the Director of Public Prosecution intends to charge a child with an offence, the DPP will be required to issue a certificate confirming the intention to prosecute the child. If no certificate is issued within 14 days of the alleged crime, it will be deemed that the DPP has declined to institute prosecution. Presently, Section 14, subsection 1 of the Penal Code provides for the minimum age of criminal responsibility at 8 years. I did not know that, and when I read that, I got shocked. An 8-year-old, you're gonna have them take responsibility? I mean, their minds have not even formed yet. They're still out there playing with mud. Should they commit, a criminal offense, they take responsibility, but now they're moving it to 12 years. I don't know. How do you feel about this bill? And did you know it existed in that formula constitution, Gladwell? I did not know.
Actually, I did not know, but Miriam, training of a child begins when the child is young. And we say you train a child the way you want him or her to be. But now the issue is we got juvenile, this for children. And one thing I know that currently the generation we are raising is these kids. There are kids that can do something and you get shocked. These kids are so much exposed. These kids can do just anything and they are capable of anything. And to that, I blame the parent or the guardian. Because I don't know, Miriam, I don't know if you've ever visited some homes and you're like, now who is the mother and who is the child? And there was also a debate I saw whereby nowadays the kids are referring to their mother and their father with their little names. If, for example, a child, the father is called Karanja, the child calls the father Karanja or then the mother Mercy, and the parent is very okay with it. Now, if you can allow your kid to call you by your names and you're much okay with it, what can that child then do in life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree with you, Cladwell, in line with sometimes parenting, and the society has really changed. And yes, I was around a friend of mine some times back, and the boy was like 2.5 years old, maybe 3. Yeah, and he was comfortably calling his father by his first name, and I said, what? He's doing what? The dad was coming in, and he was like, so give me some water. I said, what? This is not normal. Chief and Karanja. 8 years apparently was the age where a child could take criminal responsibility, but now it's being moved to 12. Is 12 still too young, or you think these are people age that can tell right from wrong?
I think 12 years is a good age, not necessarily because the kid can understand what is right and wrong, but they are parents and they are people who take advantage of the innocence of these kids, and they use them to execute their bad and criminal activities. There are people who use these kids to go and execute some kind of criminal activities, and at the end of the day, because they know a 12-year will not be prosecuted, will be deemed innocent or someone who didn't understand the right and wrong, I think the age should remain at 8 years. I think a 12-year-old is somebody who is big enough and somebody who can be used by people who with bad motives to commit and wreak havoc in a very unnecessary and uncontrolled manner. Because to some extent, the kids that we have are 10-year-old. They understand a lot of things. They know what is right and what is wrong, and it's upon the parents to ensure that they raise kids who really understand and who can maybe make wiser decisions as they grow up. Because a 10-year-old is somebody who is already in grade 3 or grade 4, there around grade 2. Therefore, this is a person who is already exposed to the world, is somebody who has been to school, and he knows 1 or 2, 3 things. A 12-year kid is almost graduating from primary school to secondary school. Therefore, these are big, he is big enough, I think.
Yeah. Sorry.
This should remain at 8 years to avoid people will not be prosecuted. There are people who take advantage of that. And when you go around the streets of Nairobi and the other big towns, you see these people we call the street kids. You see a 10-year-old, the way they behave and the way they talk, then you wonder if this person can do that at 10 years, then at 12 years, they can be a bit dangerous.
Okay. Maybe I think it's just the mother in me who's just conflicted about that. But yeah, it's true. A lot of kids nowadays are a little bit more exposed, and perhaps they're capable of so many other things, compared to maybe the earlier days. But let's see how that bill, will sail through Parliament, because we know that Kenya has been criticized before. And the penal code is said to be below the international recognized minimum age of criminal responsibility of 12 years. And Kenya has been under pressure to review its threshold. So, okay, all right. And another matter that has to do with elections. Election materials will be transported by the Postal Corporation of Kenya. This is after the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission yesterday signed 700 million Kenya shillings agreement with Posta to provide logistic services during the election. The 3-year agreement will see Posta transport election materials countrywide to designated IEBC offices, warehouses, polling centers, and to any other IEBC stakeholders. Under the agreement, Posta will ensure confidentiality in handling IEBC materials and any other related information within their custody for the security and credibility of the process. IEBC Chief Executive Marjan Hussein Marjan said efficient logistics services were key to a credible electoral process, adding that contract would go beyond the election period. I don't know how IEBC used to deliver this before. It will be interesting to know, but the use of Posta to deliver to provide for the logistics of how these electoral materials will be transported, how do you feel about that, Gladwell?
Miriam, I think currently with IBC, I think just and watch with what they want to do, because IBC with the way it's doing things nowadays, it's a little bit even shocking and leaving so much question marks. I've been an IEBC agent for the past 3 elections, and I can tell you, by the way, with apart from the rigging that was there, I went in a particular county and the registers were actually even missing. Now the IEBC is talking of transporting the materials. Have they first sorted of the registers which are supposed to be in the counties, in particular polling stations? I think they should start with the minor are supposed to be there before dealing with the major things. Yes, but another thing with the IEBC, can they first be transparent with this election? Can they first be ready before starting implementing things? There's nothing like investing in something so much heavily and then you just mess up at the end of it, or you just don't deliver results. Yeah, so it should first be ready before implementing, then start things of like transporting the materials. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Posta Chief Executive Officer and Postmaster General Dan Kagwe said the corporation would put in place a tracking mechanism that notifies IEBC officials on the status of the materials at any given point. Kagwe said Posta currently runs a customer web-based portal that allows capturing the details of materials at every station of collection at the point to the point of delivery. During the 2017 election, Posta earned 1.1 billion Kenya shillings for logistical services offered to the Electoral and Boundaries Commission in both the August 8th election and October 26th repeat election. So Posta has done this before, and I don't think there's any credibility issues that were raised then. So I guess they will still do a good job right now, Chief. And I don't know, when you look at the political temperatures we have right now, I mean, it's all right for Posta to do that. Jivan?
Yeah, thank you, Miriam. And what I see, if Poster have done that before in 2017, both in the general election and in the repeat polls, then that's good. But I think the issue, the IBC should not concentrate on the distribution of ballot papers and materials and so on. They should concentrate more on the transmission of the results. That is where the problem is. That is where everybody eyes are on, because distribution of these papers, anyway they will get to the polling station, regardless of whichever means they be used. But transmission of results from polling stations to IBC command center, where they do the final tally, that is where the problem is, and that is where every politician, every aspirant, that is where they raise concerns from. Nobody, I have not seen anyone complaining about the distribution of ballot papers. That they will do, and they have done it before, and they do it to the fine details. They do it very successfully. But when it comes to the distribution of these results, that's where the problem is. But also on the same note, we have seen politicians, I don't know where they get these, where they get copies, or how they get to know the kind of ballot papers that will be used. And they go out there, they print exactly the same ballot papers or the same material, and they use it to rig election. They go and print, come up with their own boxes and so on. Therefore, the IBC this time round, they should be strict. They should ensure that this information don't leak into the public prior to the voting day, because that is where some politicians take advantage and they print additional ballot paper. And on the same note, the issue of IBC and additional voting materials is something that raised concern in 2017, and the NASA brigade was really keen on asking, where would the extra ballot papers go? I think this time round that question needs to be answered way before we go to these elections. But all said and done, the IBC should first command a public acceptance, a public integrity, a public honesty before they start all these things that they're doing. Because when you go around Kenyans, nobody really knows what the IBC is doing. Nobody knows the level of preparedness the IBC is at as we speak. Therefore, a lot needs to be done, not only the distribution, but they should ensure the entire process runs smoothly, swiftly, and know where Kenyans will point figures and say this was not done in the right way. I think the IBC have a lot to be done. This is just a tip of what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay. And as I was just perusing through the papers as we near the conclusion of our show this morning, there's a story here that unfortunate on page 8, and then I'll just read it and then move to another one, an update on the suspect who pelted Raila's chopper over on Friday, and the latest from the courts. And there's let me just read through this story fast. The National Police Service Commission is investigating an incident in Trans Nzoia County where a Changa brewer is said to have collapsed and died after an officer allegedly snatched her money. On the spot are two officers from Kiminini Police Station who allegedly stormed the woman's house and forcefully took away her purse containing 30,000 Kenya shillings after declining to give 1,000 bribe. According to her family, Scholastica Marada, a mother of 5 who have been in the Changa brewing business for the past 8 years, was in her house on Thursday evening when the two officers came to collect the protection fee. According to Scholastica's sister, Miss Emily Nekesa, the officers came around 6 p.m. when the two sisters were chatting outside their house. Miss Nekesa claims Scholastic had walked into the house to collect something when the officers followed. So she refused to give the police officers the 1,000 bribe, apparently known as protection fee. So the officers decided to snatch all of the money she had, which was allegedly up to 30,000 shillings. And this lady just collapsed and died. And how our officers, some that I've seen even on our roads, how they collect bribes nowadays, it's just right there on the open. In the morning when I come to work, I see them, in the matatus and all that. And the matatu people know they're ready with a bribe to give the officers, and, they drive off. The police officers, they're not looking at the driver's license. They're not looking at if the insurance is expired or not. They're not looking at the things. They're not doing the checks. they should be doing on these vehicles. All right. And so they just collect the bribe and that's it. Like, that is what they wake up early in the morning to stand on the road to do. I don't know. And then this story, I don't know what you feel about it and what has been your experience, if at all you see some of these things around, where you were, Gladwell.
I think this is an issue thing. Let me say it's an issue because it happens each and every day. And yes, I saw the story in the morning, a very terrible one and heartbreaking. But the issue with these policemen, sorry to use this word, they feel like they've made it in life, like they're the only people. And I don't know, Miriam, if I've ever happened to be harassed by one of them. Like, it has happened to me whereby when you sit at the front up kwa dereva and a policeman makes that vehicle to stop and he or she, the only place that police can sit is just here at the front, and she'll just let the passenger who is seated there drop off for him to sit there, and that police officer will harass you so badly. Another issue, there was for example, the issue of the school bus. Recently we heard that caused an accident. The drivers tried signaling the policeman that school bus had carried drunk students, but what did the policeman do? He just took the bribe and just let the students walk off, and the driver, it did not even go far off before it had an accident. So I think our government should look more so into the police issues, because currently our police are having so many issues. And I sat down with one police officer and said, see, kupenda kwetu, these guys, they go through a lot, but at the same time we also go through a lot, and that's why he chose to be a police and I chose to be a journalist. There's a choosing of career. Nobody forced you to be a policeman. Nobody forced you to be what you do in life. So I think, and also on the issue of bribe, we've made it a norm that, and first I can blame us Kenyans. I can't blame the policemen, because we made it a norm that when you have a mistake, the only thing that can make you walk off is a 500 bob or the 1,000 bob. And that is when the policemen harass us so too badly. As for the business, Miriam, for example, in the Changao, the wines and spirit job, 100 bob or 10 bob means much, because that is a business. And I'm talking more so on the liquor jobs. As for Chang'an, I don't know much about it, because first it's an illegal business. But as for the rest and the wines and spirit, even that 10 bob means a lot to that owner of that shop, because I made to understand when you can sell like 20 bottles of wine and the only profit together is a 20 bob, 50 bob. Now assuming that policeman walks there and he demands 1,000 bob. So that is like a loss to you. So I blame first the Kenyans. We made it look like it's a habit that we have to give these policemen something for us to walk scot-free. So what happens? What if we just one day wake up and say, now enough is enough? Like, if you're found with a mistake, let's go to the station, and when we just solve the issue the way it's supposed to be solved, you just don't have to give a bribe for you to walk scot-free. Yeah, and I think that is what is eating up our Kenyans.
Okay, very well, thank you. Jevan Karanja.
Thank you, Miriam. And it's so unfortunate that the Scholastica lost her life because of police brutality and corruption, to say the least. But Miriam, this issue of Shanga and the police and the people who blew these illicit substances, the government should look into this issue. If you qualify, if you do a legit process, if the way you manufacture your liquor meets the standards, I think these people should be licensed. Because if the woman who lost her life was licensed, or she had a kind of a permit to do the business, if he has been doing it for 8 years, then I think she knows what is supposed to be done, and she knows how that business runs and how he makes his liquor and so on. Because Miriam, even the substance that we have in our stores, in the wines and spirit, some of them we don't know the standards, because they get through the back door. And this is Kenya, where corruption is the order of the day. I think the government should look at that issue. And to our police, I think the problem starts from the training and how these police are recruited, because they go for people who, to some extent, they don't want people who gets big marks or good grades in the KCSE. They want these people who are behind the radar of grades in terms of the KCSE and so on. Therefore, I think they should look at the issue and the way they train these people. They should train people who go out there and maintain law and order, not to be breaking the law for their own personal benefit. And if the government fails to seems difficult, if the government is not keen to fight the corruption, I think it will be wise, Miriam, to some extent, to legalize these things. When you give a bribe, you be given a receipt that you, at some point, you gave 100 bob to a police, unapewa receipt,
So the next
you
police
proceed
doesn't
your journey,
ask you
so
for
that
the
this
bribe.
money, at the end of the day, the government should have a ministry, even if under the Police Service Commission and so on, that will be dealing with this amount, so that Kenyans will be accountable, will be asking question, ile pesa tunatoanga kwa barabara imefanya nini in this financial year? What was tumefanya kazi gani in this year? I think that will be a good way of ensuring that when you give this money, you not be complaining. Nikipeana dhao yangu pale kwa barabara, I'll be like, at the end of the day, I expect something good from that money instead of feeding these few police officers in expense of a majority of Kenyans, because there are some Kenya who don't pay taxes, and if they can pay 1,000 bob at that point, then that money should be channeled into a very useful developmental agenda that will benefit all of us as Kenyans.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Usually in the morning, I think they collect maybe 50 shillings or so. That is 50 or 100. I think that's how much. Like, it's a must. You see, like, every matatu coming has to give them some money before, whether you have a mistake, it does not matter. You have to pay your, I call it taxes. You have to pay your tax to the police officer, and then you just drive away. I won't name some roads, but they are notorious. That police officer just stands there shamelessly. He'll just stretch his hand. He does not even care that, people are watching him. He'll take the money and then he will stop the next car and the next car. It's quite unfortunate. And, Chevenwal, what you're saying is funny, but, it's really serious. We should
And that is what I'm saying.
The bribing now.
For example, the new Nairobi Expressway, we are paying some levy to use the road. Mm-hmm. If that is the case in our Kenyan road, if you must give this bribe, the government should come up with a way of ensuring all of us must pay 100 bob to use a certain road in this country, so that this money will be a kind of a legal a process, so that because all of us will use this road, whether in a matatu, in a private car, they give something to the police, so that this money will be held. We Kenyans should be we start being asking for accountability for these small coins that we give in the roads. Mm-hmm. That's just a kind of
yes. So that, because now
a solution, though. Yeah.
Somehow they have legalized it in their own how they're doing things. To them it's very normal. Collecting the bribes in the morning, like it's not even a secret anymore. They just receive it and that's it. So yeah, I think, and then they don't care the state of this vehicle. They don't care if the driver is drunk, and perhaps they would have stopped a catastrophe from happening. They don't care if it's even this vehicle is roadworthy. Just give them the money and you'll just drive by. It's quite unfortunate, because there is more to why the police officers are supposed to be on our roads. There's a reason why they're there. So if they're failing to do that, then that means that our roads are not safe. And that's why you see even the boda industry and even the matatu industry, they're able to operate with impunity, breaking every law you can think about, because they know the people who are meant to be implementing and who are meant to be enforcing these laws on our roads, really, they're good police officers. I've seen others who are really, really responsible on our roads, but majority of them, and I think they aid and abet the chaos we see on our roads, to be honest. Okay. Police in Eldoret will continue holding 17 suspects in custody as they investigate the Friday attack on Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya presidential flag bearer Raila Odinga in Kabenes was in Gishu County. Among the charges likely to be preferred against the 17 is attempted murder, incitement to violence, malicious damage to property, and creating disturbance in a manner likely to breach peace. Yesterday, Suna East Member of Parliament Junet Mohammed and his Embakasi East counterpart Babu Owino were summoned to appear at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations DCI headquarters this morning in connection with the incidents. The suspects were presented before an Eldoret court yesterday after they were arrested for stoning a chopper carrying the ODM leader Raila Odinga, who had attended the burial of Mzee Jackson Kibor. So I guess, Jeanette, Mohammed and Babu, we know, are witnesses. I guess they had accompanied Raila to that burial, and so that's why they're being summoned, maybe to give their statements there. But attempted murder is perhaps one of the charges that will be preferred. Is it too much, Gladwell?
Yes, it's too much, and I always say to these politicians, let us be mindful of how you phrase a statement, because that statement can maybe put you behind bars. And another thing, politics is always a dirty game. I saw another tweet whereby the whole incident was stage managed, and I saw another tweet that those were Raila's goons. So there's still part of the story which is missing, and with the bloggers, you just can't believe anything that is said. But now putting it in a statement that it was an attempted murder, is it really so? Because it's not the first incident that is happening whereby stoning is happening, and people most escape and hurt, and others sometimes get hurt in the process. So when they really put it that it was an attempted murder, I think they should first expound to that statement, and we see they need to also look deep into that meaning, because I always say when a statement is said, 50% is the truth and 50% is a lie. Yeah.
Well, this is not just a statement. These are some of the preferred charges. This is what is on the charge sheet, Gladwell. It's not a statement being made. This is on the charge sheet. And the police.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Whatever let them first. The DCI should look more into it. And Miriam, I want to say that the culprit who end up getting sentenced, mostly they end up to be they're not guilty, by the way. And I don't know if you've ever even happened to walk into these jails. Most of the people in behind bars, most of them are actually so innocent, and the ones who are guilty are walking out scot-free. And I saw it somewhere that the whole incident was stage managed. So when they said that it was an attempted murder, let them first look closer, deeply into that case. Let somebody not suffer because of a statement or maybe a prosecution that was made. They should first investigate into it. And one thing I love about our country, the DCIs act so fast. They act so fast and they act out so smart. So I think that's just there's something they can look into it within hours.
Yes, they're investigating. That's why they're calling these people to write statements. So Karanja, as we conclude, the 17 who were arrested, some of the charges that will be preferred against them is attempted murder, incitement to violence, malicious damage to property, and creating disturbance in a manner likely to breach peace.
Thank you, Miriam. And I think that is exactly what they were doing, because if that stone hit the former prime minister, the story would be different. And I think that area of Cabanes by now, nobody would be speaking to anyone because of the operation that could have carried out by our police, the army, and everybody else. I think we should, as people and Kenyans at large, we should be vigilant, we should be open-minded to avoid being used by politicians or being manipulated by politicians for their cheap political gains. Because, Miriam, when you look at that issue, that was a very serious offense, because if they can hit an helicopter, a chopper, with stones, imagine if it had already taken off. That would mean danger, life would be lost. Therefore, I think there's some good move, and I think the DCI should move with the speed and ensure that these people who have already been found to be suspect, the investigation should take its course, and anybody who will be found guilty, they should not be let free, scot-free. They should remain behind the bars so that they teach others. They act as an example to others who would be used by politicians to commit such crimes. But I think this is an eye-opening process, because we have seen every politician from all political divides condemning what happened, because they know next time it will not be Raila Odinga, next time it will be William Ruto, it will be Kalonzo Musyoka, it will be some other politicians. Therefore, I think it is high time that all politicians come together and refrain their supporters from causing that manner of thing. Because if in any way, they happen to hit a presidential candidate and they injure him, whether Deputy President Raila Odinga or any other politician dies in those political meetings, Miriam, I don't think it will augur well, even the image of this country, to the international bodies and so on. It will not be a good image that in Kenya the reports will be like a politician died in a political rally. That's something that is very sad, and we should be ashamed of our country if that happens. Therefore, we should not pray that those things reoccur again in future, because that is a very sad situation, and Kenyans really felt it, and it's sad. It's sad. I think politicians should practice political tolerance, and politicians should stop zoning their areas. Everybody is allowed to go and sell their manifesto in every part of this country, because we are all Kenyans. It all starts with politicians who call themselves the political bigwigs, the political kingpins, and what they do, they zone a certain areas, that this is the area of Kibaki, this is the area of Uhuru, this is the area of Ruto and Raila. Nobody should have his areas, because those areas are part of this country, and all of us are welcome to sell our agendas into those areas.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you so much. Speaking of Kibaki, I think I've seen an article here where I think his son will be vying for the Member of Parliament of Nyeri, if I'm not wrong. Yes, I think I've seen a story here. I can't really remember, but in one of the papers. But anyway, thank you so much, Jevan Karanja. Thank you, Gladwell Kiragu. Thank you, viewers, for watching. We'll be back here in a few minutes with another show where we shall continue with some of the conversation that we've had this morning. My name is Miriam Ogutu. This has been Good Morning Africa. Good morning to you.